Καλησπέρα σας κυρίες και κύριοι. Καλώς ήρθατε στην εκπομπή Ευρώπη Τώρα. Σε συνεργασία με το Europal TV θα παρακολουθήσουμε όλες τις εξελίξεις από το Ευρωπαϊκό Κοινοβούλιο. Ας δούμε το πρώτο μας θέμα. Μετά από ένα χρόνο όπου κυριάρχησε ο αγώνας κατά της τρομοκρατίας, η πολιτική μετανάστευσης και η ανάγκη εξυγχρονισμού της προστασίας δεδομένων στην Ευρώπη, ανακαλύψτε ποιες είναι οι προτεραιότητες του Κοινοβουλίου για το 2016.
A migration phenomenon gripped Europe, but double terror attacks in Paris shook it to its core. Big decisions lie ahead to find the right mechanisms to cope. So what's in store for the year ahead? It's time to find out. Welcome to the Agenda 2016. Emergency measures are in full force, but could the new year bring with it more permanent solutions and help the tens of thousands fleeing to Europe?
Hungary became a major flashpoint in the ongoing saga as it closed its borders. Better management was sought via a relocation programme.
Out of 160,000, so far only around 200 have been transferred from worst affected countries to date.
A permanent relocation system is in the pipeline. MEPs will also initiate proposals to find a holistic approach to migration. But could another proposal spoil Europe's dream of a land without borders? A European Coast Guard and border system will be voted on in March, but could member states oppose yielding sovereignty?
Following the attacks in Paris, Brussels too fell victim to the dark shadow of terror, shutting down for 5 days. But a month on, the military presence on the streets of Brussels remains, but is not just here, but across European cities. Is this to become the status quo?
Europol, the European law enforcement agency, is set to be given greater counter-terrorism capabilities, which could facilitate better intelligence sharing.
If Europol was given oversight over a cyber police force, could that help prevent the online recruitment of young Europeans by jihadis?
A big emphasis too will be made on education to counter the radicalisation of young people and to stop the spread of hatred in prisons and online.
Could the transfer of the data of passengers on international flights to law enforcement agencies help fight homegrown terrorism?
A difficult political agreement was reached in December after the Paris attacks and will now be voted on by the full House at the beginning of the year. PNR goes hand in hand with a sensitive dossier on data protection, also in the stages of an overhaul. Just before Christmas, the three institutions shook hands on the data reform package, so the text can also be approved in the new year.
And now for some stories expected to hit the headlines in the new year.
Can the non-binding agreement forged at the COP21 climate change conference in Paris hold? MEPs will continue to push for lower emissions by 2030, with an overhaul of the emissions trading system, emissions from road vehicles, and also look out for a new energy union policy. Access denied? Not anymore. The fourth railway package is finally gathering steam. Domestic rail markets are set to be opened up to competition Europe-wide. Is Europe on track for a more customer-oriented service? Someone trying to steal your trade secret? Well, if you're a business, you can now take the thief to court and get compensation. But rights will not impinge on freedom of expression. With political agreement reached, the dossier will go to plenary in March. 2016 will also bring continuing efforts to stop the risky business of big banks. But when? The digital single market aims to stop geo-blocking, a practice that prevents users from accessing online sites based on their country location.
And it will make shopping a lot easier across member states.
Voting begins in January.
Υπάρχει ασφάλεια στον κυβερνοχώρο. Τομείς κέρειας σημασίας, όπως η ενέργεια και η ιατρική περίθαλψη, πρέπει άμεσα να προστατευτούν.
The Cybersecurity Directive is the latest component in Europe's drive for digital supremacy. For the first time, coordination is being sought for essential services such as air traffic control, health and financial markets. But to lead the world, first things first, ridding any chinks in your armour that could leave your system vulnerable to cyber attacks.
If there is a hacker out there that tries to hack your hospital data, that these data are really protected in a way that there is no danger to be displayed elsewhere than where it is allowed.
Companies would have to have robust enough systems to ward off online threats and report any serious incidents to a national authority. But beyond the sectors a country could deem as crucial to protect, the likes of Google, Microsoft and social media sites would also fall under the ambit.
These internet giants and network specialists are just asked to inform public authorities about structured attacks, about information, about cyber attacks that they gather.
The days of the internet's wild, wild west could soon be coming to an end.
Ο Επίτροπος Μετανάστευσης Δημήτρης Αβραμόπουλος κάνει έκκληση να αποφευχθεί η αρνητική αντιμετώπιση των μεταναστών. Ταυτόχρονα όμως προειδοποιεί πως μόνο όσοι χρήζουν πραγματικής προστασίας θα γίνονται δεκτοί.
The situation is getting worse. This year we had no winter break. 3,000 to 4,000 arrivals every day in Greece over the Christmas and New Year period. More and more member states are reintroducing internal border controls. Let's avoid amalgamizing migrants or refugees with criminals and terrorists. Europe will provide protection for those who need it. But those who have no right to be here have to be returned.
Und ich möchte auch gerne von Ihnen wissen, wie Sie zu dem neuen Asylgesetz in Dänemark stehen und ob Sie sich dazu jemals geäußert haben, das unter anderem vorsieht, dass Flüchtlingen Wertgegenstände weggenommen werden.
We will examine the legislation and officially respond to Denmark once the law is adopted.
Juncker said that there will be a flexible interpretation of the Stability Pact for the member states that are showing more willingness to solidarity. What happens with the countries like Sweden that are not members of the Eurozone?
The Commission, as you know, already recognized the different situation of Sweden and has proposed to suspend relocation to Sweden.
Στην ατζέντα βρίσκεται η Ολλανδική Προεδρία, η Πολωνική Δημοκρατία, αλλά και οι διαπραγματεύσεις για τις συναλλαγές των υπηρεσιών.
Last year's refugee crisis hit Europe hard, but can the crisis be resolved in 2016? Could the Strasbourg plenary perhaps find solutions to the months ahead? It's time to find out. Welcome to the agenda. A new year brings with it a new presidency as Netherlands takes over the reins of the EU Council. The usual declarations of live long and prosper have been made, but the Dutch have some tricky waters to steer. Top of their agenda for their 6-month tenure will be getting to grips with the migrant crisis and whether protecting EU borders could mean disabling the Schengen Agreement. Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte and Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker will be present in the chamber for a debate with MEPs on Wednesday morning. Is Europe headed for a democracy crisis as Poland veers off track? An October election swept the Eurosceptic Law and Justice Party to power, who have since come under fire from Brussels for introducing laws that threaten fundamental rights. The European Commission, in an unprecedented move, has now launched an inquiry into whether these new laws break EU democracy rules. If so, they could invoke Article 7 of the Lisbon Treaty, suspending Poland's voting rights in the EU Council. Now, to her own parliament, she declared that democracy is alive and well. But what will Prime Minister Beate Szydło have to say before MEPs at the chamber in Strasbourg? Follow the debate on Tuesday. Have you heard about TISA, the Trade and Services Agreement, currently under negotiation that would open up services to foreign companies? The services agreement has been criticised for negotiations being shrouded in secrecy, just like TTIP, the transatlantic trade deal. But also just like TTIP, it would open foreign markets to European companies. But to get a little, you have to give a little. Could that mean that public services are up for grabs? MEPs say no. What should be the red lines? In Strasbourg, the Trade Committee will hold an extraordinary meeting to vote on a set of do's and don'ts to be presented to negotiators.
And now for some news in brief.
It was a unanimous decision to hear France's call for help following multiple attacks in Paris. But how should member states contribute to France's war on ISIS? MEPs debate the way ahead with a vote on Thursday. Upgrading Europe's digital prowess hurtles forward as MEPs hold their own non-binding vote on the digital single market strategy. And don't forget to tune in for a key debate where both European Council President Donald Tusk and European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker will be quizzed by MEPs on the European Council meeting that took place in mid-December. Could a new emissions testing system for cars make the Parliament invoke its right to veto? Instead of being tested in the lab, car emissions can now be tested on the road. MEPs from the Environment Committee have called the change unjustified and oppose it. Will the full House share their opinion? A debate takes place on Monday. And that's all we have for this agenda. Take care and enjoy the week.
Οι ευρωβουλευτές ζητούν να υλοποιηθεί η ενιαία ψηφιακή αγορά και να μπει ένα τέλος στον γεωγραφικό αποκλεισμό.
Transforming the economy by generating 415 billion euros and creating thousands of jobs. That's what a fully functioning digital single market could do for Europe. MEPs gave it their support at a vote in Strasbourg on Tuesday.
The economy is becoming more and more digital. We can see how those digital barriers dividing our member states are coming back. We have to create digital single market in the European Union.
First things first, getting rid of barriers across the 28 member states to make sure that consumers have greater access to goods and services online.
If there are 28 sets of, for example, consumer protection rules, then companies just don't sell cross borders. But there's a big difference when you sell to a market of 1 million or 5 million or to a market of 500 million.
Another focal point of the discussion in the chamber was geo-blocking, the practice that prevents the user accessing information based on their country-wide location. The Parliament calls for an end to unjustified geo-blocking.
This goes against the very foundation of a single market, so I don't think there can be justified geo-blocking inside the digital single market.
But what MEPs say is required is to put the consumer first and for innovation to be allowed to flourish. So far, the digital single market is merely a concept, but expect the Commission to put flesh on the bones of their proposal later on in the year.
Οι ειρηνευτικές διαπραγματεύσεις στην Κολομβία πρέπει να ολοκληρωθούν εντός του 2016. Τουλάχιστον αυτό επισημαίνουν οι ευρωβουλευτές, προκειμένου να μπει ένα τέλος στις μακροχρόνιες συγκρούσεις.
2016 is a crucial year in efforts to end a civil war in Colombia that has claimed more than 200,000 lives. The government and the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, FARC, aim to wrap up a peace accord launched 4 years ago. This week, MEPs debating next steps sought to advance the process.
Hemos conseguido un hito, y es que 7 grupos políticos, que normalmente somos distantes en las posiciones ideológicas y en los conceptos, ponernos de acuerdo, han emprendido en estos momentos de manos del presidente Santos un proceso que otros iniciaron, que no concluyeron y que por fin parece que las partes que han estado 50 años en guerra pueden llegar a una conclusión de paz.
As signatory to a free trade agreement with Colombia and Peru, the EU has plenty at stake and, says one MEP, plenty of responsibility too to ensure commercial activities support future peace and human rights.
Las multinacionales, que muchas veces son europeas, son también un agravante, por decirlo de alguna manera, en el conflicto, por todos esos conflictos con respecto a las tierras, y ahí creemos que también la Unión Europea tendría que actuar.
MEPs want an agreement by March this year. Remaining issues include demobilization of combatants and justice and reparations for victims. Deals on land redistribution and combating the drugs trade have already been reached.
Στο σημείο αυτό, κυρίες και κύριοι, θα κάνουμε ένα σύντομο διαφημιστικό διάλειμμα και σε λίγα λεπτά θα είμαστε και πάλι μαζί με το δεύτερο μέρος της εκπομπής Ευρώπη Τώρα.